Reveler, some Sarkins, 3 copies of Cetessan Tactics. You got some Hornet's Nest, 3 of them to be exact. 3 copies of Pelucrados, 2 Doomwake Giants, a Perforos God of the Forge, a Hornet Queen. It seems like this match would be pretty good for Shaheen, actually.
Yeah, so what Michael Majors has done with his deck is he's taken the core of a green-based Devotion deck, and he's kind of taken the Devotion package out of it so that he could play better cards. So instead of just playing a lot of green mana symbols, he's playing Xenagos, Sarkhan, and like you said, Cetessan Tactics. These are cards that are good in a lot of matchups. I don't think many of them are particularly good here. He's going to have to lean on a couple of the cards here to win this matchup, which is, I think, an unanswered Xenagos would be great. I think the Perforos God of the Forge, which he has in the main deck, it's a cord target. That would be stands to be pretty good against Shaheen's deck as well.
Any Banishing Lights running around Shaheen's deck?
Not in the main deck, at least.
Nice clean answer to that card.
He has 1 Utter End, so that would take care of it. But it's just a 1-of.
One thing I do like about this Esper control deck and kind of blue decks in general now is that they get to play a lot more 1-ofs because of dig through time.
Right.
So the chances of them actually finding a card like Utter End, and you know, Utter End is a really good card, though it is expensive. The likelihood of me able to find it is actually a lot higher because, you know, so many dig through times and be able to just get through your deck pretty quickly.
Yeah, you see that. Lots of times you see like an Utter End or a Silence the Believers or some sort of really expensive catch-all style card.
Majors is going to start things off with just a couple of lands, a forest, and a copy of Llanowar Waste. Shaheen's going to play, looks like a Despise, not a Thoughtseize, so we'll see 2 Coursers along with the... I don't know why the Nest is so popular this weekend, but he does have 1 in his hand, and Michael says, well, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, it just goes ahead and makes the decision for Shaheen.
Hornet's Nest, why are you so popular this weekend? I have to talk to these guys. What are they up to?
To note, Majors on a mulligan to 6 here.
Yeah. Temple to see, going to put the top card to the bottom. We're heading back Majors' way. Drew a copy of Sarkhan for the turn. You have to imagine Courser's going to join the party. He'll take 1 to cast it. Take a look at the top card. That's a copy of Manic Influence. So Majors down to 19.
And one of the dangers of playing an overly meta deck, which I think Majors' deck is very metagamed right now, is that if you run into something you weren't expecting, your hands can look a little foolish. And you're looking at that right now, really, with Michael Majors' deck. You know, the Esper player gets to look at a hand of a Courser of Kruphix and a Hornet's Nest, and really couldn't be happier about it.
If I despised my opponent and saw that was their hand, all right, I've won game 1.
As long as I make my land drops, this will be fine.
Pretty much. Now, what he did draw in its Majors was a copy of Sarkhan that Shaheen has not seen yet. So that was kind of the draw in between the Courser. That was the draw step for the last turn. So you see the Courser on top of the deck. We know that's coming next turn. But what Shaheen doesn't know about is the powerful Planeswalker. That's the only thing he has to worry about. He's going to use a Hero's Downfall now to take care of this Courser. So there is the potential here for Majors to actually maybe catch Shaheen off guard. We'll see what happens. There it is. Yes. Oh, yes. The Nest.
Makes the Hornet Nest. And what Shaheen is doing there is he's just being mana efficient at this point. A lot of his cards, like Hero's Downfall, Dissolve in hand, they're just very good 1-for-1 trades.
Courser the draw. Will deploy. And it says absolutely not. Going to dissolve that. She can actually, as you mentioned, kind of, make these 1-for-1 trades, but make them aggressively because of the Despise. He saw, okay, well, you don't have anything, so I'll just counter something. Here's Sarkhan.
Shaheen missed his land up there, but he drew Dissolve for the turn.
Oh, that works
just
okay.
fine.
He says, I think he's going to do it with the trigger on. Whoa, oh.
He's going to shoot his own Hornet's Nest.
Oh,
and this
was amazing.
This was a little bit of a hiccup on Shaheen's side. He didn't dissolve the Sarkhan, thinking that when Michael went to attack, he could Hero's Downfall it, but then Michael goes to deal damage to Hornet's Nest, and Shaheen's forced to actually spend a card on Hornet Nest, which I don't think he was planning to do.
Yeah, he had to Bile-Blight it. Probably not something he wanted to do, as you mentioned, but got the job done anyway. That's one of the more adorable things I've ever seen, which is going after your own Hornet's Nest. Sarkhan's going to tick up, and looks like Shaheen's actually happy to take 4 points of damage here. A little surprise there.
Well, he does have Hero's Downfall in hand, so he can't downfall it on end step because I believe it's indestructible now, which he's checking.
Don't do that.
What he'd like to do is he's willing to take some damage so that he can make land 6 and then downfall it with Dissolve up. He wanted to catch everything. But because of that indestructible clause on Sarkhan, if he doesn't hit the land soon, he may just have to take the shields down and take out the Sarkhan.
Yeah, for now, do not Hero's Downfall that. No, 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 Esper Master. As that thing is indestructible.
It's interesting. If he had a burn spell, he could still burn Majors, redirect it to the loyalty of the Planeswalker, and get it that way. But with a spell that destroys the card, that would not work.
Yep. Looks like there might be a little dig through time action, though. Both players, you can see, are kind of talking back and forth, probably to the table spotter, to make sure that everything is in order. So if we do have a ruling for you guys in just a moment about what is going on, we will let you know. Looks like there is some conferring that is taking place here, but this is the game that I feel like Shaheen is pretty far ahead in, and the matchup seems pretty good too.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of cards he can ignore, and that's problematic for Michael. I mean, he has draws in his main deck like Hornet's Nest. He has 3 Setessan Tactics in his main deck, 2 Murderous Cut. There's a bunch of things that are really kind of bland here.
Yeah, it does not look great, especially for game 1. Now, the sideboard games are much different, and I think when we get there, you'll see that Michael actually has a lot of cards that he can bring in, cards like Chandra and Genesis Hydra. But I think that game 1, as long as Shaheen's able to hit his land drops, as you mentioned, maybe cast a dig through time, push forward here, because there are so many dead draws here for Michael in the matchup.
Exactly.
So it looks like maybe a little Oracle text is on the way here, and make sure they know exactly how Sarkhan does work. It's a little bit unique, because you would think you'd be able to Hero's Downfall this, but you can't. And like, okay, now I got the green light on now. Dig through time to draw.
Yeah. So he doesn't have land number 6 right now. He can't just play the land untapped, then downfall the Sarkhan and leave up Dissolve. Shaheen's going to be forced into making a choice here. He will I imagine he'll still end up downfalling the Sarkhan because he has this dig through time. That would be card number 6 in the graveyard, so he could go downfall dig. It does mean Majors gets to resolve something, but because he has dig, Shaheen can probably find an answer.
This would be a court for 3. Majors will have to take a little bit of damage, and he has 1 green mana that doesn't deal him damage, so Matic Influence and Llanowar Waste are going to hurt him a little bit. Though I am a little interested to see 3 mana spells. He could get another Hornet Nest. I have a feeling that's not going to happen, though.
Sarkhan attacking or convoking?
It attacked last turn. That's what it's done. Quarter calling, well, that's not going to resolve. So get that out of here. Thank you much.
So we're still on Shaheen's end step.
Yep.
Now, looking at his list, if he's going for Chord for 3 on end step there.
Courser is the best of the bunch. I mean, 4 of those, 3 Hornet's Nest, a Reclamation Sage. And, I mean, he's not going to find Caryatid or Elvish Mystic in this instance, so we'll draw another copy of Chord, though. That's not so bad.
If he can get all up to 4, he can make that Pelucranos.
Yep.
Or not Pelucranos, or Perforos.
He's going to Chord for 3 again. This looks like it's going to resolve, so I would be very surprised if it's not Courser. Try to get the ball rolling here.
Those other options would be Caryatid, Mystic, and Hornet Nest. Yep. So given the options, and it is the last Courser in his deck.
So we'll see the top card here from Michael in just a second. Maybe he finds the land, maybe he doesn't, but at least this is some small type of card advantage, though it does give away information to Soorani about what cards are coming. For Shaheen, it's just about drawing lands, I think.
If he can draw lands, it'll be very hard for Shaheen to lose this game. His card quality is really high. The fact that he has this dig through time should smooth that out for him.
Bloodstained Mire is going to come into play. Majors will gain a life. Top card now is a Doomwake Giant. There's Dig. 6 cards removed, 2 blue. That's the necessary 8. We'll take a look at the top 7. We're going to see players cast this one for many years to come.
Dig through time, and you see Treasure Cruise in the 7 there. Both those delve spells out of Khans of Tarkir ending up to be just excellent.
It's crazy. Those are 2 of the most overlooked cards coming out of the set, too. When you talk about the preview cards for this set, of course, you're going to be drawn towards the wedge cards, your Savage Knuckle Blades, your Siege Rhinos of the world. Treasure Cruise wasn't a card that was on a lot of people's radar. I think the same thing could be said for Dig Through Time, too. People were thinking, well, Delve 6 is so many. What are the chances that they're actually good? The answer is, well, they're good.
Yeah, it was hard to say just how good Delve was going to be.
Yeah. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card here. You see Shaheen does have a copy of End Hostilities in his hand. Necessary mana to cast it, of course, but I think step 1 is getting this Sarkhan off the table with the Hero's Downfall that he has.
Yeah, he can take care of the Sarkhan. Then if Doomwake Giant is cast, he can end hostilities both creatures. Otherwise, he can just take 2 off the Courser for a while, which isn't terrible either.
Temple of Mana going to come into play. Trigger the Courser, gain a little life. Here's a little scry action. Pelucranos looks like it may stay on top of the deck. That's going to tick up. Response, kindly leave. Hero's Downfall, we'll get that off the table. 2 damage will come across. Soorani's down to 9. There's a Doomwake Giant, and I think in a moment, a lot of hostilities are going to be ended. Absolutely.
Shaheen with a commanding hand here. He has another End Hostilities, an Elspeth, and an Utter End. So answers aplenty at the moment.
This is just Shaheen Soorani magic, man.
Yeah.
Just through and through. Also, it's going to tick down, kill Pelucranos. There's another Pelucranos. We already know that Shaheen has an answer for this, but this is just, you know, tap out style magic, big haymaker effects. Yeah, he's got a couple counter spells, but counter spells are kind of necessary in a strategy like this. Going to cast hostilities again, get that off the table, take up Elspeth, and 3 soldier tokens. Now, I know you're a fan of the do nothing approach. Do you like this more proactive take that Shaheen plays here?
Well, I think it's very powerful. You know, he certainly has keyed in over the last few years on the synergy between planeswalkers and board control, and that's in a lot of ways he feels like a mid-range deck to me more than a control deck, in that he's tapping out for planeswalkers and then sweeping the board, and he's gaining virtual card advantage by all these free planeswalker activations. Planeswalkers generally like the board to be clear, so I like what he does, what he's doing with his strategy. Does it have that same sort of can never lose end game that control decks often have? No, not really. I don't think so. You know, if, say for example, like a blue-black control deck that has more counter spells and more card draw, I think will get him if they get to turn 10.
Sure, with Jace's Ingenuities and Pearling Ancients and all that stuff, the blue-black deck that the Pantheon Adrian Sullivan are working on. I could see that being a tougher matchup for him. You
know, they would, like, eventually they'll Perilous Vault all his Planeswalkers, and then they'll make a Pearling Ancient, and that is a more robust late game. But what Shaheen does is he can pressure these decks like Jund.
He did that very easily. He does win game number 1 here with his take on Esper against Majors playing this Jund core deck. We're going to go to Majors' sideboard first. You'll see the matchup does get better. 2 Genesis Hydra, 2 Ash Cloud Phoenix, a Hammer of Furforos, a Murderous Cut, 4 Anger of the Gods, a Doomwake Giant, a Reclamation Sage, 2 Chandra Power Master, and an Ilea's Disciple. Some nice options here.
Yeah, well, Michael has so many cards that he wants to board out in this matchup. Talked about it before. Murderous Cut, Setessan Tactics, Hornet Nest. It's already 8 cards. I imagine we'll see a lot of this sideboard here. So Genesis Hydra is great against control. Remember that the trigger of Genesis Hydra is not counterable. The creature just comes into play. Any sort of Planeswalker sounds great, so we'll probably see Chandra Pyromasters in, Hammer Purphoros. Both Ash Cloud Phoenix are pretty good against removal. You have to kill them twice if you don't counter them, so probably use those. That's 7 cards already. Outside of that, then the cards start becoming cards that really weren't for this matchup. Stuff like Nylea's Disciple. It's a 3/3. It might still be better than some of the things he has in his main deck, so you still could see the card. But I think those first 7 are the ones he's actively looking forward to playing.
What do we have on the Esper control side of things?
Not as much. It's a good... Right now, Michael's deck is all about playing things to the board, and Shaheen's a board control deck. So the main deck is pretty good for him. What he does have in the main is he has copies of Drown in Sorrow. I don't usually think that he'd use this against a green deck. I do like a pair of Negate here. There is a decent complement of Planeswalkers coming out of Michael's deck. I don't know how much he knows that, but I think you can suspect it at this point, so he'll probably board those in. Outside of that, he might bring in a Prognostic Sphinx, but I don't even think Michael's trying to kill off Shaheen's things. Shaheen's not going to board too much.
Game 2 going to be underway here in just a moment, but our little furry squirrel friend is hanging out with a panda nowadays. The last member of our Creature Collection series, Squirrel Confidant, now available.
Yeah, so this was the last of the Squirrel series for the year. This is Squirrel Confidant based on Dark Confidant. You can order these online on playmats, deck boxes, and card sleeves. Also, if you missed any of the Squirrel collection for the entire year, for the remaining Legacy Opens, if you show up, you'll get 2 free Squirrel tokens randomly selected from the Squirrel tokens that we've had the year. So that would be Acorn Mystic, Squirrel Confidant, Squirrel Storm, and Force of Squirrel.
Could be any one of them. Who knows? They are randomly dealt out to anyone who does enter our Legacy Open Series events, like the one that will be taking place tomorrow. Squirrel Confidant, again, available at StarCityGames.com, and any Open Series events that you do attend. Game number 2 here between Soorani and Majors underway in just a moment. I'm very interested in this Jun Accord deck, how we came to this deck. What is Brian Brondwin and Michael Majors up to here? Why so many Hornet Nest in this format? That's the big question. You don't just walk into a tournament and play 3 of these things.
Well, that really is the interesting part, right? How did you come to the idea that you want 3 Hornet Nest main? Hornet Nest is a card that is a really high impact card when it's good, but can be pretty bad when it's bad. We've seen it here, you know, be really a dud. But there have been matchups like Blue-White Heroic where that card is just insane. So first of all, you have the ability to cord out a Hornet's Nest, which I imagine you get some surprise points on players just by doing that. You know, they attack with a Pelucranos and suddenly you cord for 3 and block with a Hornet's Nest and you could actually win a game against a lot of mid-range decks. I think the Jun deck is another take on how to win mid-range mirrors at the end of the day. The format has shaped up with not too much control. And I know, of course, I say that as Majors faces down a control opponent.
Yep.
But a lot of these mid-range decks, be it Devotion or Abzan or Mardu, are trying to get extra game against each other. So they're trying to out mid-range each other. So what does that mean? Maybe they play a Whip of Erebos, something that doesn't really play fair. It plays out of the graveyard. Maybe they play a 4th color. Maybe they play a card like Hornet Nest.
Game 2 underway here. Temple of Abandon is where we will begin. Top card will stay on top here for Majors. He's got Courser in his hand already, so an important card to get things started for him as far as card advantage is concerned. Shaheen has a Polluted Delta in hand. He's taking a long look trying to figure out what land he wants to start things off with. He'll go with a Delta. This is a copy of Thoughtseize, so a Swamp is coming, and here is the Grip. There's a Cord, a Courser. We'll make it 2 of those, along with a copy of Sylvan Caryatid, a Pelucranos, and a copy of Bloodstained Mire.
Pretty good hand from Michael Majors.
It's an interesting situation here on what you do take. Do you want to take the acceleration there in Caryatid? Do you want to take kind of the payoff card in Pelucranos? There's 2 Coursers, so I can't imagine you want to take one of those unless you have a backup discard spell. And the Cord, well, Cord could be anything.
So he takes the Caryatid, and I was saying you could take it if you have a good turn 3 play. And there's a chance you mana screw Michael doing this, that he doesn't get to play his stuff on curve. Esper Control is not always able to capitalize on that, so it really depends on what Shaheen's hand is.
Majors plays the top card right off the top of his deck. It's a Temple of Malady. He already knew that from the scry from the Temple of Abandon, so that comes into play. Top card stays on top yet again. We head back Soorani's way. Shaheen will draw and play a Temple of his own. It's a Temple of Deceit. Take a look at the top card here. You can see his hand. He's got a Sorin over there, also Plains and Elspeth too that he's working his way towards. We already know about the Polluted Delta. Looks like a Hero's Downfall too, so top card will stay on top here for both players. Majors will draw a mountain, play the mountain. There's a Courser. Take a look at the top. It's another copy of Court of Calling. So working his way towards some important cards here.
Yeah. That early Thoughtseize ended up not being very strong on Shaheen's side. He took a gamble by taking the Sylvan Caryatid, but it didn't really pay off. And down the road, he might have wished that it had snagged a card that he cares more about.
It's an untapped land here. Shaheen had the option to play a Temple of Silence enter, but he chose not to. In the draw step, gonna go after the Courser, get the information knowing that a mountain is coming next turn and the draw was a Court of Calling. But this is a backup Courser, play that mountain, gain a life, top card's a Bloodstained Mire, so that'll be Majors' draw next turn. Majors does have 2 green mana, 1 away from the necessary 3 green for Court, though he does have a Courser in play to satisfy that cost at this point.
So right now, Majors is playing a card advantage game. Rather than making a land for Pelucranos or something like that turn, he instead just wanted to get his free card with Courser.
See what Shaheen can do this turn. He's got 3 lands, no white mana yet, though again, we know he's got the Temple of Silence, so his white mana is on a delay here, and he's gonna play the Temple. Take a look at the top card and scry. And the Elspeth in hand, top card going to the bottom, so he's not happy with what he saw, just pass the turn back. This could be representing, of course, removal spells or dissolve, as we saw in the last game. Top card here for Majors is a Doomwake Giant.
So Doomwake, it's just kind of a threat in this matchup. Majors' deck is a little short on those for this matchup, but he does have the added bonus that it can take care of Elspeth tokens. We do see an Elspeth hiding out in Shaheen's hand.
Yeah, I really think that's, outside of it just being kind of a 4/6 attacker, that's the only really use for the card in the matchup. Though, to be fair, it's a pretty good use, as I think Majors' deck does actually have some difficulty working its way through an Elspeth. So maybe that plays a role. Bloodstained Mire going to come into play, trigger the Courser, gain a life. Still only 2 green over there for Majors, though, which is probably the larger issue. And he elects not to deploy anything. He could have played a Pelucranos, for example, but he chose not to.
Right, so there's a balancing act here. He needs to keep enough pressure on to not lose to Elspeth. He also doesn't want to play into end hostilities.
Which it looks like Shaheen actually does have in his hand. Yeah, and he's going to reaching, and maybe he might just trade 1 for 1. That would be a little surprising if that were the case. Yeah.
Yeah. 1 for 1 trade's fine. I don't know if Shaheen doesn't have another answer, he has to remove the Corsair eventually.
Don't like Giants to draw.
Well played by Michael to get Shaheen to use the end hostilities that way.
Here's the 4 mana. Yeah, this looks like it's going to be Pelucranos, which is a card, of course. I mean, Shaheen knows he has it. We know he has it. You guys at home know he has it. So he's just going to put it into play a Bloodstained Mire 2, and pass the turn back. Temple of Enlightenment is the draw. This is Elspeth. That's going to come down. That's going to tick down, take care of that. Now the question is, can Majors beat this thing?
Right, so Elspeth has always been pretty good against these Jund decks, and Majors with, I would say, almost the perfect draw here.
Yep. It's a Chandra. It's going to tick up, take that off, and now he's got the Planeswalker advantage. That can also be a card advantage moving forward. Shaheen's going to play a Temple of Enlightenment. Top card's going to stay on top very, very quickly as he goes reaching for mana. That may have been the perfect draw.
What a huge draw. So the only actual haste cards in Majors' deck are Chandra Pyremaster and then Xenagos the Reveler. Drawing one of those there was really valuable.
Oh, here's another Planeswalker. So we're having a little bit of a showdown. Now it's Sorin, Solemn Visitor. There's your Vampire token. Pass the turn back. Michael will draw Xenagos. So it's a Planeswalker party here in round number 4.
Yeah, and this is really where Shaheen's deck starts to look like a mid-range deck. You know, you see they're basically, each of them has removal and Planeswalkers, and they're kind of just, they're going at it here.
It's very interesting, the inclusion of Xenagos in this deck. Of course, it's really good to Chord of Calling. That part is obvious, and it does generate a decent amount of mana, but Xenagos has been poorly positioned ever since Khans has come in, thanks to, Mantis Rider and Lightning Strike. But it's showing up now, as this is going to tick up. This is actually really nice use of this. He's able to make a creature, tick up his Chandra, says, hey, token, you don't get to block. I'll deal you 1 and take care of your Sorin, pass the turn back. Whose Planeswalkers are better? We'll find out.
Well, one person's Planeswalkers are staying alive, and that's the key part right now. Shaheen can dig through time for an answer, which is what he's going to do. But there's kind of a problem that there's no planar cleansing or anything in his deck that's going to just clear up this board for him.
And this is what makes, a deck like Blue-Black Control so appealing, is because you got to play Perilous Vault, which took care of Planeswalkers. Shaheen's deck doesn't want anything to do with Perilous Vault because he's winning the game with Planeswalkers. Right,
so your catch-alls in the format are, just like you said, Perilous Vault and Fated Retribution, and Shaheen's deck can't really play either of those with a straight face because of how he's winning the game. But it does make coming back on this kind of board really difficult for him.
He's going to dig through time now. He's going to remove 6 cards, so 1 will be left over. It's a Polluted Delta. So we'll take a look at hostilities among the bunch. Prognostic Sphinx as well. That one's really interesting as he's going to consult his lone card in hand.
I was going to say, I thought the best, looking at his list, the card that best gets him back into the game is Prognostic Sphinx. And I was wondering whether or not he had boarded it in, but as we see here, he did, and that is at least one way his deck can answer multiple Planeswalkers. It's not pretty, though.
No, it's really not. I don't know what card he's supposed to take in this situation. Sphinx is pretty good on this board currently. And he does have the necessary blue mana to cast. You see he has 6 lands in play, and 2 of them are blue, the 2 temples there. So he's okay with casting it. It's the option of an Elspeth there. You see a Negate and a Hero's Downfall in that pile. No one said resolving Dig Through Time is easy. It's just what you want to be doing.
Right, so this is where the board control plan can be a little weaker. It's because his board control doesn't answer boards of Planeswalkers.
If you think about it, there's not really a heavy Planeswalker deck in the format right now. Abzan does have a Johnny and a couple copies of Elspeth, but nothing really like what Majors is up to.
No, there was no Jund Walker's deck.
A couple of mana being tapped. All right, Hero's Downfall is going to take down Chandra. So Shaheen felt that was way too important, and you see the other 3 mana he has available for Dissolve, so he's ready for whatever the heck the follow-up spell is.
Shaheen might be okay right now. The Vampire token can take care of the Xenagos. Dissolve can take care of Majors' next card. It would seem that everything is okay right now.
Wooded Foothills is green mana number 3 for Chord of Calling. Here comes Satyr token. Shaheen's going to go down to 9.
I'm wondering what it is that Majors is setting up a chord for. He can chord for 4 right now, which means he could get Pelucranos, or Perforos.
I like the second one. I think Perforos is really, really good in this deck.
Or he could get Ash Cloud Phoenix as well.
That one's actually really, because it's in the board. I forgot about that.
Right. That might be his best target of all.
Either way, Xenagos is going to die. Shaheen's going to play a Swamp. He's going to pass the turn back. Majors is going to predictably sacrifice some lands here because it's time to try to resolve a chord. He'll be getting a forest with the Wooded Foothills. We'll see what he gets with the Myers.
Yeah, he couldn't chord before this because that Wooded Foothills was finally his third green source.
Uh-oh.
And he might be...
Okay,
no, he's not. Okay, I was gonna be like, he might be out of basics. He does play 3, 3, and 1. So he has 7 basics. It probably should be fine.
There's the chord for 3. Gets dissolved immediately. Shaheen going to take a look at his top card. See where that's going to go in just a second.
Michael may go for a sorcery speed Court of Calling.
So easy for us. We know the coast is clear.
Yeah, well, Shaheen only has 1 card left.
Yeah. Majors will draw. Maybe that affects things. Well, Llanowar Waste doesn't change all that much. He'll start by attacking for 4. Put Shaheen down to 5.
The reason you'd end step it is to overload your opponent's mana, but if Shaheen's hand is as empty as it is, you're not really going to attack his mana one way or the other.
Temple of Silence, top card. Going to stay on top. Is it time to Windmill Slam that chord?
Well, if he chords for a creature here, I think if he chords for Perforos, he can double activate the Perforos, which means that Shaheen will certainly take 4. Ash Cloud Phoenix is good as well.
Yeah, it puts Shaheen in a terrible spot. He's got the necessary mana to just keep on morphing, and Shaheen knows it. He's going to pack it up. So Michael Majors is going to win game number 2 here over Shaheen Soorani. John Cord, a little bit of a brew. I suppose Esper Control's kind of a brew, too.
Sure.
They're going to be playing a 3rd game here in just a moment.
Well, for Shaheen, it's not much of a brew, but it's,
yeah.
I don't know if I would expect to see this in anyone else's hands.
If anybody else, this is a what are you doing for Shaheen? It's like, well, if you're doing anything else, I'm very surprised. I know he told you and some other people he was thinking about the Sultai kind of Planeswalkers deck that he's been working on, but we all know the truth. We know he's doing this.
You can't play End Hostilities in Sultai.
That's correct. You cannot. So both players going to shuffle up for game number 3 here, but we will discuss our Ooze friend. Ooze the boss, well, it's our Ooze token. Along with everything else you can get it on playmatch, you can get it on deck boxes, the whole shebang.
Right, so these are our Ooze token. This is another one of our creature collection, as you said here. You can see we now have it on sleeves, deck boxes, dice bag. You can order all those from our website. Also, if you place any order at StarCityGames.com of over $5, you'll get 2 free Star Ooze tokens included with your order. As you can see over there. So for all your slime moldings and other Ooze cards.
Underplayed card.
That was the first one I had.
Underplayed card. There should just...
Your Ooze Gardens and...
I loved that card. Only limited, but I liked that card a lot.
And there's the Simic one, Ooze Flux, right? That made oozes. That made Stars.
Yeah, that made Stars.
Right. So in all of these decks, you can use this Ooze token.
Oozes are underplayed. I would like an Ooze... You know what? We had that guy running around in Columbus with Bear Tribal and Legacy. I want to see an Ooze Tribal deck. And I want someone in an Ooze costume. These are my demands. Someone please meet them.
Bear Tribal, like they were all 2/2s for 2? Or as in they were all creature type bear?
They were all creature type bear.
That sounds sweet.
He busted out the... And he was wearing a bear costume, but he busted out the... he busted out... I know you had that weekend off, so you missed that. But he busted out the Alpine Grizzlies. I was sad to see that he didn't have any copies of Bearscape in his deck, though he did have Bear Cub from Portal.
Okay.
He had Savage Punch. There's a bear on the picture there.
Sure.
And some other very nice bears. So for you Ooze fans out there, get yourself an Ooze costume, get yourself some Ooze sleeves and some Ooze cards, and I want you to battle the Bear Man at the next tournament.
The Ooze costume seems way... Oh, man.
We got to put a lot of work in for this.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of work.
That's not easy.
That'd be real gross, too.
It's easy to go buy a bear costume. That's easy. But the Ooze costume is real dedication. And that actually sounds like a dual deck that's going to come out soon. Bear versus Ooze. Look, WotC, all I'm saying is you guys want to make some real money, Bear versus Ooze.
It's tough. I don't know which one I'd play.
I want my cut.
Now I'm thinking which one I'd want to play as, the Bears or the Oozes.
What's 5% of 0? You're really good at math.
It's not, you won't like the answer.
All right. All right, we'll have to talk to him about that. Bear versus Zeus coming to a store near you.
0 is generous.
Game number 3 going to be underway here. Just a moment. Shaheen's going to be on the play. Things definitely change after sideboard. Like, Michael had a lot of bad cards in game 1, as you mentioned. You know, the Hornet Nest, the Success and Tactics, the Murderous Cuts. But Ash Cloud Phoenix and Genesis Hydra, those are real cards against this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Ash Cloud Phoenix can be a problem for a lot of Shaheen's draws. He has enough mana to kill things once on most turns, but he rarely has turns where he can double kill something.
And his plan of like sweeping away the board, well, we know Ash Cloud Phoenix doesn't care about that, so it's actually a pretty good threat against his deck. The other end that Shaheen has in his list is probably pretty important here. He's going to play a Swamp. It's a discard spell. It'll be a Thoughtseize. We'll see Michael's hand. He has Ash Cloud Phoenix in his hand, along with the Sylvan Carry added, a Court of Calling, and 4 lands.
Well, this is one way that Shaheen can 1-for-1 get rid of Ash Cloud Phoenix, because I imagine that's what it'll take.
It seems like far and away the best card in the grip here for Majors. You see Majors kind of shrug his shoulders and say, I have to keep. I can play Ash Cloud Phoenix on turn 3.
This is why Thoughtseize is a really good card.
One of many reasons why he's taking the Cord. That is surprising to me. Maybe he has another discard spell in his hand. We'll see.
If he has a Despise in his hand, that makes a lot of sense.
There's Llanowar Waste, going to pass the turn back. Will Majors over to Shaheen. Yep, there's your Despise. Bye-bye, Phoenix. Your hand stinks.
It's got mana. And Shaheen building up to a great board. So he sees a hand of Carry added and lands, and Shaheen's hand is double Dissolve. So it's got time.
I think he's also got an Ashiok in his hand, too. Now, there's Carry added. We'll pass the turn back. So I do want to see what Shaheen's going to do this turn if he does have Ashiok. He's going to play a land.
So he could either play Ashiok here and hope to dodge a threat that's too bad and then just win with these dissolves. Or he could wait until he has 6 mana and try to just start dissolving everything. Because I don't think he has a 4th land, I think he goes for Ashiok.
He's going to sacrifice the Flooded Trance, so it looks like he's going that direction. See what land he's going to dig out of his deck. He's going to consult the hand there. He saw Dissolve. There's an island.
There are some dangers here. If Majors, say, resolves Xenagos next turn, this is not a good game for Shaheen.
No, it does require a Major's top deck, but he does have plenty of nice cards to draw in this situation, so we'll see how things break. His draw step is going to be crucial to this plan of playing Ashiok and basically trying to protect it as it ticks up. So here's a Phoenix. That would have been a good draw. Elvish Mystic and Elvish Mystic.
The upside is that if Majors doesn't have a good play here, Shaheen is in such a good spot.
I don't know if Genesis Hydra is good or bad.
Genesis Hydra for 2 doesn't seem good enough.
We're going back Shaheen's way. Majors is going to wait. There's a Caves.
Yeah, and now that Shaheen dodged that 1 turn, he seems like he's in such a great spot.
There's a Xenagos, a Reclamation Sage, another copy of Xenagos. Ashiok has the ability to take over this game in a huge way now because of the 2 dissolves.
Well, with the 2 dissolves, he can already ult the Ashiok. Majors' deck doesn't do a very good job of playing more than 1 card in a turn.
There's a Courser. Yeah, that's not resolving. It's interesting because I don't think Courser has like a huge effect on the game, but I'm in the mode right now. If I'm Shaheen, it's just like, oh, you're playing a spell? Counter it.
Well, if you counter both their spells, then you can ultimate the Ashiok,
Yep.
and then you get all of Majors' cards. So that seems appealing enough that I think he's just going to dissolve anything.
Wood of Foothills is the land for Michael. He'll pass the turn back. Ashiok's Elevators moving on up. Board's going down. So, what?
That's a little surprising. He makes Elvish Mystic. I did not expect that one.
Of everything he could have chosen that turn, that would have been the last on my list. Somebody's got a bit of a plan here.
He's got to ramp into that end hostilities. No, that would be bad. And he loses the Elvish Mystic.
Here's a Courser.
I'm interested to see what he's setting up. Maybe he's trying to get that Elspeth out.
Elspeth is really, really good against Majors' deck. But I was very surprised by that play.
Yeah, if he had plus there, he would have plus to 9. Could have dissolved Major's next play plus to 11. Majors would play a card, and then he could... There'd be something on Major's board, but then he could minus 10 it, and then end hostilities. And then you'd be like, well, you have no anythings. Let's start top decking. I still have this Ashiok.
And creatures under the Ashiok, too.
Right.
That he could bring back. He could work his way that way, so...
And this Elspeth, and, you know, it seems safe. He has other plans.
We'll see what he's up to, because now Courser's in play. So Shaheen is definitely up to something. He is the Esper Master, after all. So I defer to his judgment.
Yeah, I don't think he missed that line. I think he chose to play a different one.
Because he ticked out Ashiok so fast. He was just like, yeah, Elvish Mystic, go. It's like, all right. There's a land. Trigger the courser. Gain a life. You see the top card's a Chandra Pyromaster. Shaheen going to draw a card. It's a Temple.
He has 5 mana now. That Dissolve probably will... Well, he can mill that Chandra off the top with Ashiok if he wants, or he can make a creature. So he puts the Xenagos to the side there. Ashiok can't actually cast those ones.
I bet he wish he could.
He can Reclamation Sage the Courser.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's his play.
Down to 3. Get that off the table. Temple. Top card.
The problem is that I'm thinking too much like he's playing a... I think he's playing... If you think about him playing a control deck, then you want to go the line where you get all their cards in hand and you wrath their creatures. But if you think about him playing a mid-range deck instead, then what he's doing right now is he's creating 2-for-1s with Ashiok.
And I mean, he's playing like a mid-range deck.
He's playing it like it's a mid-range deck, which, to be fair, I think don't let the colors confuse you. It's a mid-range deck. It's got a lot of cards that control decks play, but it's more interested in 2-for-1s than it is in pure board control.
To Genesis Hydra for 4. Not a great Genesis Hydra. It's just going to put Elvish Mystic into play. It is a 4/4, so that's kind of nice. We'll see if Shaheen has any interest in potentially countering this. I'd be surprised if he does, simply because he has end hostilities in his hand. He can buy himself a lot of time by chump blocking and all that stuff, so we'll see.
Yeah. Remember, Shaheen does have the Dissolve, but he can't. This trigger just gets to resolve.
Yep. So Elvish Mystic is coming in no matter what.
Yeah. Majors probably had hoped for something better there. The 4/4 in play, though, is still nice.
Hero's Downfall to draw. Ashiok is going up. Hammer Perforos, a Temple, and a Mountain. Not the worst thing I've ever seen. Is the Hammer's gone now, so Shaheen's just going to pass the turn back. He's like in between playing mid-range and control.
I mean, because you expect him to slam Elspeth there, right?
Yeah.
If he's you're like, hey, if you're a mid-range deck. I mean, to be fair, this is how I like him playing it this way, but because this is the control way to play, to say, like, what would you rather cast this turn? Elspeth, or would you rather cast Dissolve and Hero's Downfall? With the acknowledgement that you might just cast nothing.
Yeah.
And he went with the second one, so now he's back to... He's treading a line between mid-range and control. And I think his decks always do that to a point.
And he's shifting roles kind of back and forth, too, like every turn.
Right.
Something is changing. Got a chump block here. Reclamation Sage is going to go in the graveyard. Keep in mind, too, that Shaheen knows about the Doomweight Giant that's in Michael's hand. So I think he was trying to set up a board there where Doomweight Giant looked great on that board, right? You get to kill the Elvish Mystic and the Reclamation Sage. Hey, you get to get him for 4 or 5 points of damage. Wow, how do you pass that up?
And then you end hostilities.
Yeah, that's how you pass that up.
If you do that, then Michael gets to resolve the Chandra, though.
Yep. So Shaheen is kind of... I mean, you can definitely tell he's trying to reel him into something. And Majors is saying, you're not reeling me into anything. So who's going to make the move first is the question. We can't forget that Shaheen, throughout all of this, has an Ashiok in play. That's the big deal. So Majors can't just sit here forever. Well, now we're going to play Chandra finally.
All right, and this is, I think, what Shaheen wanted. He wanted to get the Dissolve, stick the Dissolve on the Chandra. And now it makes his answers to Doomwake Giant a lot better, because now we can end hostilities if Majors makes Doomwake and not allow Chandra to resolve when he does it.
Soorani will draw a card. We'll think it was a land. Is it time? Ah, yes, this is one of my favorites. I will attack you.
Oh, you know exactly what this means. This only, like, oh, great, okay.
Michael says,
how
yeah.
fast is Michael going to scoop his creatures?
Yeah,
before he even plays the card.
I'll take one, I guess. All right, in hostilities. Yep. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. Top card stays on top. We're ticking up, perhaps? Are we ticking down? We're going all around?
Well, there's a danger to making the Ash Cloud Phoenix here. If he makes the Ash Cloud Phoenix and Majors kills it, when it comes back as a face-on morph, that will be Majors' Ash Cloud Phoenix, not Shaheen's. So I don't think he ever makes the Phoenix. That's way too much of a liability.
Couple of cards to get exiled there. Court of Calling in 2 lands. Major's just going to pass the turn back, not willing to cast his Doomweight Giant. Shaheen will tick up. This is Xenagos, the Sylvan Caryatid, and an Elvish Mystic. Creatures will go in one pile, the rest will go in the other. So there are Soorani's options. Shaheen says, I'm not casting Elspeth yet, not making a move at all.
Majors gets a threat on his side. It's a Sarkhan. At this point, he may just have to start blindly throwing cards into Shaheen's, into the void, basically, just into this massive counter spells and removal.
Stabbing around in the dark.
Yeah.
Hoping to hit something. There's Sarkin.
Little to no expectation that any of these are going to work.
Shaheen's looking at a disdainful stroke now, too. He's going to use the counter spell on the Planeswalker.
He also had Hero's Downfall available there.
Shaheen will draw. Looks like a copy of Dig Through Time. Up goes the Ashiok. It's in ultimate range now. Oh, wow, a Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
And that's where it becomes a mid-range deck. He may just make the Hornet Queen
Yep.
next turn, as opposed to just milling Michael forever.
Majors his hand right now. Doomway Giant 2 lands. Shaheen's patience has been very impressive this game. Plays and lines that are much different than ours, but again, I defer to his judgment. He's been playing Esper.
Yeah.
I don't want to say for too long, just forever.
Well, he certainly is. He's very experienced at Esper mid-range.
Yep.
Let's Doomwake resolve, but he's going to dig through time.
Who cares about Doomwake? I can dig. I can find an answer to that, or I can not.
Leaving up 3, just in case he finds dissolve and wants to dissolve. Also could Hero's Downfall it.
I think he just selected one Hero's Downfall, and there's also an Utter End here too. Yeah, this is starting to be a runaway now.
It's just a real expensive divination.
Hero's Downfall, quickly untap, take a draw. Probably Ultimate Ashiok, make sure the coast is clear for Elspeth, or we can go through the bees.
Oh, I think that's what it is. Just make Hornet Queen. That card's really hard for Jen to deal with.
Yeah, it'll take a Doomway Giant, and he just killed one.
And even if Michael deals with it, that's probably okay.
Yep. You gonna play an Elspeth too now? Yeah, Majors.
More
Yep.
tokens.
3 soldiers. Now all Shaheen needs is the Perforos now.
Yeah,
Then
and there you
we're
go.
really building a stew.
Well, he needed it beforehand, and then he just sort of he would have combo killed him right there. That would have been 16.
Yeah, actually, that would have been awesome, actually, if that would have happened. Either way, it's Shaheen Soorani who's winning this match with Esper over Michael Majors. 2-1. Esper Control will take down this innovative Jund Accord deck. Not the right matchup for Hornet Nest. For Majors, that's his first loss. For Shaheen, he is 4-0 with his control deck of choice.